The News Line.
Hello and welcome back to People's TV. If you are unaware, the United Nations General Assembly is taking place this week. While serious leaders meet to discuss the world's future, bands of anti-Israel clowns are wasting their energy screaming on the streets. International media reports show these staged tantrums, complete with the usual recycled slogans and the same tired activists who make a living out of hating Israel. Take a look at today's disgraceful scene. A pack of anti-Israel thugs gathered outside the United Nations headquarters, kicking around a model of the Israeli Prime Minister's head as if it were a football. Let's be clear, this is not freedom of speech, nor is it freedom of expression. It is filth parading as protest, and nothing less than the abuse of a democratic privilege that they clearly do not deserve. I believe we can all agree that while we are entitled to our rights, including the right to protest, such actions must always remain within ethical and humanitarian boundaries. Unfortunately, that is far from the truth. Numerous protesters, a mix of so-called woke activists, pro-Hamas sympathizers, and far-left agitators, have been recorded openly calling for violence, chanting for the death of Jews, celebrating attacks on the Israeli Defense Forces, demanding the removal of Israel's leaders, and even advocating for the destruction of the Jewish state. This is not protest, it is raw incitement, a mockery of democracy, and an abuse of the privilege of freedom of expression. By contrast, I have personally participated in several pro-Israel protests here in Sri Lanka. From the very beginning, we have always upheld the principle that protesting must be conducted in a civilized manner, within the boundaries of accepted social norms. At no point have we ever encouraged participants to act aggressively, target an individual, or attack any community or ethnicity. On the contrary, we made it a point to instruct participants to behave peacefully even before the protests began. Our demonstrations were disciplined, our voices were firm but respectful, and our disagreements were conveyed to the authorities in writing. In other words, we protested with dignity, without ever crossing the line into hatred or violence. We have escalated our protests in stages depending on the seriousness of the issue, but even then, we have always remained strictly within legal and ethical boundaries. At every step, we are careful not to encourage inhumane expressions or behavior, ensuring that our message is conveyed firmly but responsibly. The State of Israel stands as a prime example of how protests and responses can remain peaceful and dignified. In the next video, we see how the Jewish people respond to radical Islamism in their land. Even amid chaos and threats, they can be seen dancing, singing, and celebrating life in accordance with their faith. Their resilience and joy are a testament to maintaining humanity, hope, and spirit even in the most difficult circumstances. I have traveled to many countries, including Israel, and have witnessed firsthand how peaceful and compassionate the Jewish people are. Our Sri Lankan brothers and sisters who live and work in Israel can attest to the same atmosphere. They respect humanity without regard to race, religion, or ethnicity, something the terrorist-led groups conspicuously fail to demonstrate. Unlike these hate-driven mobs, the Jewish people uphold dignity, civility, and respect even in the most challenging circumstances. I must emphasize, this conflict is not about land or mere political differences. This is not a question of race. It is a battle between human beings and monsters. It is a struggle between peaceful citizens and religiously extremist, radical Islamists. It is a clash between civilizations and people driven by underdeveloped tribal mindsets. It is a confrontation between those who cherish democracy and terrorists who revel in death. As I have emphasized before, terrorism comes as a package. It is not a war waged solely with firearms. These groups sell drugs to fund their campaigns, wage war through deception, and commit atrocities such as raping women to intimidate communities into silence. Their methods include sex trafficking, murder, and an insatiable thirst for blood. They show no respect for the rights of others. Their actions are barbaric, driven by demonic impulses, and fueled by lust for power, chaos, and death. Terrorists prioritize their twisted goals above human life and human rights. They have no regard for human lives, and their slogans only confirm this reality. Hamas, for example, has openly declared, "Jews love life. We love death." In stark contrast, the Jewish people value and respect one another. They treat each other with humanity, uphold democratic principles, and stand as the only democracy in the Middle East truly dedicated to eradicating terrorism. Israel is the most powerful nation confronting terrorism, and almost all of the world's darkest activities can be traced back to terror networks. This is why standing with Israel is not just a political position, it is a privilege and an honor. We want to remind our nation, once again and with all due respect, do not allow extremists in this land to open the door for radical Islamism to infiltrate our society. In recent months, we have witnessed these religious extremists exploiting schoolchildren, dressing them in their uniforms and using them to march in anti-Israel protests, particularly in the eastern province. This is a deliberate and dangerous attempt to normalize radical ideology among the next generation, and it must not be tolerated. We have also observed these radical Islamists exploiting mainstream media to spread hatred and false propaganda against Israeli tourists arriving in Sri Lanka. As a nation, we must remain vigilant and on high alert to ensure that these pro-Hamas, pro-terror groups cannot manipulate public perception or promote their deceptive agendas. If this report helped you see the situation on the ground clearly, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to People's TV, where truth has no agenda, and facts speak louder than spin.
Subscribe us for more details.